Kira turned to study the tall, scarred woman. "You served with distinction in the hegemony military. Why aren't you with your captain in the brig?" "Because I've read the historical records," Blackwood replied bluntly. "The real ones, not the propaganda. The Caliph Empire wasn't the monstrous tyranny the hegemony claims it was. You brought 3 centuries of peace to this galaxy. When you fell, everything went to hell. And you believe we can restore that peace?" Blackwood gestured to the displays, showing refugee convoys, burning worlds, and pirates preying on defenseless colonies. "Look around. Things can't get much worse. At least under Caliph rule, people knew what to expect. Now, every system is a battleground." Admiral Koros nodded approvingly. "Practical wisdom. My lady, I believe we should consider this woman for a command position in the restored fleet." "Restored fleet?" Kira laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Admiral, I'm 19. Years old. 3 days ago, I was a slave. I have memories I don't understand and knowledge I've never learned. How can I possibly lead an empire?" "Because you are Caliph," Koros said simply. "The blood remembers, even when the mind does not. Your ancestors didn't build this fleet to conquer, they built it to protect. The galaxy is crying out for protection once again." Through the viewport, they could see the massive flagship Eternal Vigil maintaining its position like a sleeping giant. Its weapons remained powered down, its shields inactive. Despite commanding overwhelming force, the Void Fleet made no aggressive moves. They simply waited, as they had waited for 3 centuries. "The Hegemony Task Force will arrive within 6 hours, Blackwood reported. 12 heavy cruisers and a command carrier. They'll expect to find wreckage and prisoners." Kira closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command settling deeper into her soul. When she opened them again, they held a resolve that hadn't been there moments before. "Then we should give them something to find," she said. "Admiral Koros, prepare the fleet for departure. Commander Blackwood, you're now my liaison with the former hegemony crew. We have work to do." "Where are we going, my lady?" Koros asked. Kira smiled, and for the first time since her awakening, it reached her eyes. "Home, Admiral. It's time the galaxy remembered what the Void Fleet stands for." The ruins of Caliph Prime hung in space like a broken jewel, its once magnificent. Cities now craters of glass and twisted metal. Kira stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Vigil, watching as the Void Fleet took positions around their devastated homeworld. 300 years hadn't diminished the scale of the destruction. Entire continents had been burned away, leaving only scorched rock and radioactive seas. "I remember when the gardens bloomed here," Admiral Koros said softly, joining her at the viewport. "Your great-grandmother's palace overlooked the Crystal Straits. On clear days, you could see the academy where we trained the finest officers in the galaxy." "The hegemony was thorough," Kira replied, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "They didn't just want to defeat us, they wanted to erase us completely." Commander Blackwood approached with a datapad, her expression grim. "Admiral, we've completed the planetary scan. The surface is still uninhabitable, but the underground cities show signs of life. Automated systems are maintaining environmental controls, and there are people down there." Kira turned sharply. "Survivors?" "Descendants of survivors, more likely. The readings show approximately 50,000 individuals living in the deep shelters. They've been down there for 3 centuries, waiting." The implications hit Kira like a physical blow. While she had been enslaved, believing herself an orphan from a destroyed colony, her people had been slowly dying in underground tombs, maintaining hope for a return that seemed impossible. "Prepare a shuttle," she ordered. "I need to see them." "My lady," Koros protested, "the surface radiation levels are still dangerous. And if there are survivors, we don't know their current political situation." It may not recognize your authority. Then I'll have to earn it, Kira replied firmly. I won't command from the safety of orbit while my people suffer below. The descent through Calith Prime's poisoned atmosphere was a journey through decades of decay. Their shuttle's sensors showed the remains of mighty fortresses, shattered defense platforms, and the skeletal remains of orbital habitats that once housed millions. As they broke through the cloud layer, Kira could see the entrance to the deep. Cities' massive glass doors built into mountainsides. Still sealed after 3 centuries. The shuttle landed in a cleared zone marked by ancient beacon lights. As they disembarked, figures emerged from hidden positions guards in environmental suits that bore the faded insignia of the Caliph household troops. Their leader removed her helmet, revealing a woman with the angular features and luminous tattoos of the old nobility. I am Regent Ashara Veltar, she said, her voice carrying the formal cadence of court protocol. I speak for the last assembly of Caliph. You claim to be of the bloodline? Kira stepped forward, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on her. I am Kira Caliph, daughter of Admiral Marcus Caliph, granddaughter of Empress Lyra the Last. I have returned to claim my birthright and lead our people home. Regent Veltar studied her carefully, then activated a device that projected a complex holographic pattern. Place your hand here, child. If you are truly Caliph, the ancient seals will recognize you. Kira pressed her palm to the projection. Light flowed through the patterns, and suddenly the air filled with harmonic tones that seemed to resonate from the very stones around them. The massive blast doors began to open for the first time in 3 centuries. Welcome home, my lady, Veltar said, tears streaming down her face. We have kept faith. The journey into the deep cities revealed both triumph and tragedy. The survivors had maintained their civilization, their technology, even their hope, but at a terrible cost. Genetic degradation from radiation exposure, limited resources, and the psychological toll of centuries underground had reduced the once mighty Caliph people to a mere remnant dot in the great assembly hall, carved from living rock kilometers below. The surface, Kira addressed her people for the first time. Thousands gathered, their faces marked by hope and desperation in equal measure. I know I am not the leader you expected, she began, her voice carrying through the ancient acoustics. I was raised as a slave, not a princess. I learned warfare in chains, not in academies. But I have returned with the Void Fleet intact, and I make you this promise. We will not remain buried in these tombs. We will reclaim our place among the stars. An elderly man stepped forward from the crowd. And what of those who destroyed us? What of the hegemony that condemned us to this living death? Kira met his gaze steadily. Justice will be served. But first, we rebuild. First, we heal. The galaxy has suffered enough from cycles of revenge. We will be better than those who came before. As the assembly erupted in discussion and debate, Admiral Koros leaned close to her ear. My lady, long-range sensors detect the hegemony task force has arrived at our previous position. They're conducting search patterns. Kira nodded, her expression hardening. Let them search. When they find us, they'll discover that the Void Fleet has awakened and the galaxy's balance of power has shifted forever. Kira pressed her face against the cold viewport, watching stars streak past in brilliant lines of light. 3 years aboard the hegemony transport Relentless had taught her to find beauty in the emptiness of space, even as a prisoner. The slave collar around her neck hummed softly, a constant reminder of her captivity since the raid on Colony 7. Still dreaming of escape, little bird? Captain Voss emerged from the shadows, his cybernetic eye glowing red in the dim corridor. We'll reach the mining station soon. Your new masters will appreciate your ... enthusiasm. Kira said nothing. Experience had taught her that silence frustrated him more than defiance. She turned back to the viewport, but something was wrong. The stars weren't moving correctly. They seemed to be bending, forming patterns that tugged at memories she didn't know she possessed. A deep vibration thrummed through the ship's hull. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in amber. Captain Voss grabbed the comm unit. "Bridge, report." "Sir, we're experiencing system anomalies. Navigation is showing impossible readings. The ship's computer is..." "Singing?" Kira's heart skipped. Through the ship's walls, she could hear a haunting melody that seemed to resonate in her bones. The slave collar around her neck began to warm, its usual red light shifting to deep blue. "What did you do?" Voss spun toward her, drawing his plasma pistol. "Nothing," Kira whispered, but even as she spoke, words flowed from her lips in a language she'd never learned. Asharamorphic, Veltar Eshnakdos. The ship shuddered. Every screen in the corridor blazed to life, displaying a three-dimensional star map that rotated slowly. A voice echoed from the walls themselves, ancient, patient, filled with longing. "Welcome home, daughter of House Calith. The fleet awaits your command." Captain Voss fired his weapon, but the plasma bolt dissipated harmlessly against an invisible barrier surrounding Kira. The slave collar cracked and fell to the floor in pieces. As alarms wailed throughout the ship, Kira felt something awakening. In her mind-vast knowledge, tactical databases, the weight of command stretching across centuries. "Computer, identify the prisoner," Voss shouted. Prisoner designation rescinded. Identity confirmed. Admiral Kira Calith, Supreme Commander of the Void Fleet. Heir to the stellar throne of Voss shot the console, but it was too late. Throughout the ship, hegemony soldiers were reporting the same impossible message. Their captive wasn't just a refugee from a destroyed colony. She was royalty from a lost empire, and her ship somehow impossibly remembered her. In the depths of space around them, ancient vessels began to decloak. The Relentless found itself surrounded by a fleet that had waited 300 years for this moment. Sleek warships, each one larger than a city, powered up weapons that could crack planets. Kira looked at Captain Voss with eyes that now held the memories of 100 lifetimes. "Captain, I believe you have something that belongs to me." The bridge of the Relentless erupted in chaos as Captain Voss burst through the doors, dragging Kira behind him. His crew scrambled at their stations, faces pale with terror as the massive fleet surrounding them came fully online. Each ancient vessel bristled with weapons that predated the hegemony by millennia. Shields at maximum, all weapons online. Voss shouted, shoving Kira toward the captain's chair. "Whatever trick this is, girl, call them off." Commander Hayes, Voss's second-in-command, turned from the tactical display. "Sir, their smallest escort ship is 3 times our size. Their flagship is, God's help us, it's 15 kilometers long. Our weapons wouldn't scratch their paint." Kira stood calmly in the center of the bridge, no longer the frightened prisoner they'd known. The change was subtle, but profound, her posture straighter, her eyes holding depths that spoke of ancient wisdom. When she spoke, her voice carried an authority that made hardened soldiers step back. "Valenith Astra, Corvash tale." The words rolled off her tongue like a half-remembered song. Throughout the bridge, every screen displayed the same response streams of data in the flowing script of a dead civilization. "She's accessing our systems," Hayes called out. How is she doing this without touching anything? Through the viewports, they could see the lead vessel, a magnificent dreadnought whose hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Its name appeared on their screens, Eternal Vigil, flagship of the Caliph dynasty. A communication channel opened without anyone activating it. The face that appeared was neither fully human nor alien. angular features marked by luminous tattoos that pulsed with inner light. Admiral Thane Koros had waited 3 centuries for this moment, sustained by technology that transcended normal understanding of life and death. "My lady," he said, his voice carrying across the bridge with perfect clarity, "the Void Fleet stands ready. Your orders?" Kira closed her eyes, and suddenly she could feel them all hundreds of ships, their crews in stasis, their AI cores maintaining perfect vigilance. The weight of command settled on her shoulders like a familiar cloak. These weren't just vessels. They were her legacy, her birthright, her responsibility. "Admiral Koros," she replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was experiencing. "What is the fleet's current status?" "Fully operational, my lady. 347 vessels of the line, including 12 world ships and the quantum arsenal. We have maintained our posts as ordered, awaiting the return of House Calith." Captain Voss stumbled backward. "This is impossible." "The Caliph. Empire fell 300 years ago. Everyone knows that. They were wiped out by the hegemony." Kira turned to face him, and for a moment her youthful features seemed overlaid by the ghost of someone older, more terrible. "The hegemony thought they had destroyed us. They were partially correct, but the fleet endures. The dynasty endures. And now, Captain Voss, you face a choice." She gestured to the screens, showing the vast armada surrounding them. "You can surrender your ship and your crew to my custody, in which case you will be treated according to the ancient codes of honorable warfare. Or you can continue to hold me prisoner and discover why the galaxy once trembled at the mention of the Void Fleet." Through the comm system, Admiral Koros spoke again. "My lady, shall I demonstrate our capabilities? The crew of this vessel seems skeptical." "That won't be necessary, Admiral. Yet." Kira's eyes never left Voss's face. "I believe Captain Voss is an intelligent man who understands his situation. In the viewports, they could see more ships decloaking an endless procession of vessels that shouldn't exist, commanded by people who should have been dust centuries ago. The impossible had become reality, and at its center stood a young woman, who was rapidly remembering that she was so much more. The Relentless now drifted powerless in the center of the Void Fleet, its crew confined to quarters while ancient maintenance drones swarmed over its hull. Captain Voss sat in his own brig, watching through the viewport as vessels older than civilization itself moved with perfect coordination around them. Kira stood in what had been the ship's conference room, now transformed into a makeshift command center. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing tactical data, fleet positions, and stellar charts that mapped territories the hegemony had never dreamed existed. The memories were coming faster. Now, not just knowledge, but experiences. Emotions, the weight of decisions that had shaped the galaxy. "The hegemony thinks they rule the outer rim," she murmured, studying a display showing current political boundaries. "They have no idea how small their empire truly is." Admiral Koros materialized as a full-body hologram, his ancient face grave. "My lady, we've completed our analysis of current galactic conditions. The situation is concerning. Show me." The displays shifted, revealing a galaxy carved up between various factions. The hegemony controlled the core worlds, but dozens of smaller empires, confederations, and independent systems filled the void. Trade routes were choked with piracy, entire systems had been sterilized by warfare, and refugees fled in massive waves from conflicts that seemed to spring up daily. "It's worse than I thought," Kira said softly. "When we went into hiding, there was order. Brutal, perhaps, but there were laws, codes of conduct. This is chaos. The galaxy forgot the lessons." "We taught them," Koros replied. "Without the Void Fleet to maintain the balance, they've reverted to tribalism on a stellar scale." A new presence entered the room, Commander Sierra Blackwood, Voss's former chief of security. Unlike her captain, she had accepted the situation with pragmatic grace. "Forgive the interruption, Admiral, but I thought you should know. We've intercepted hegemony communications. They're mobilizing a task force to investigate our disappearance." The hegemony task force emerged from hyperspace, expecting to find debris and prisoners. Instead, they found themselves facing a site that had been absent from the galaxy for 3 centuries, the full battle line of the Void Fleet, arranged in the ceremonial formation of challenge. Admiral Brutus Kane, commanding the hegemony forces from his flagship Iron Fist, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "This is impossible. The Caliph fleet was destroyed. I have the historical records." "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's on all frequencies, being broadcast throughout the sector." The main screen flickered to life, revealing Kira standing on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. Behind her, the vast command center hummed with activity as officers who had slept for centuries resumed their posts. She wore the deep blue uniform of a Caliph admiral, the ancient insignia gleaming on her collar. "I am Admiral Kira Caliph, rightful heir to the stellar throne and supreme commander of the Void Fleet," she began, her voice carrying across space. "To reach not just the hegemony ships, but every vessel and station within a dozen light years. For 300 years, the galaxy has believed my lineage extinct. You are mistaken." Admiral Kane activated his own transmission. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of hegemony space. Surrender immediately, or Admiral Kane," Kira interrupted. Smoothly, "I know your service record. You're a competent officer who has served your government with honor. I have no quarrel with you personally. However, your government has committed crimes against my people that cannot be ignored." She paused, letting her words sink in. Throughout the sector, merchant ships, pirate vessels, independent colonies, and military patrols all received the same message. The galaxy was witnessing the return of a power that had been legend. "I do not seek conquest," Kara continued. "I do not desire your subjugation. But neither will I allow the chaos that has consumed this galaxy to continue. The Void Fleet returns not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers. Those who prey upon the innocent, who profit from others' suffering, who spread fear and destruction. They will face our judgment." On the hegemony flagship, Kane's officers looked to him desperately. Their sensors showed weapon systems that defied understanding, ships whose power signatures exceeded anything in their databases. One of the ancient dreadnoughts could likely destroy their entire task force single-handedly. "Sir, what are your orders?" His second-in-command whispered. Doc Kane studied the display, then made perhaps the most important decision of his career. "Stand down all weapons. Open a diplomatic channel." Kira nodded approvingly when Kane's image appeared on her screen. "A wise choice, Admiral. I believe we have much to discuss." The negotiations that followed would reshape the galaxy. The hegemony, faced with the reality of the Void Fleet's return, agreed to a gradual transition of power. Kira's terms were surprisingly reasonable. Autonomous zones would be established. Trade would be regulated to prevent exploitation, and a new council would be formed with representatives from all major civilizations. But the real change came in the weeks that followed, as news of the Void Fleet's return spread. Pirate fleets that had terrorized shipping lanes for decades suddenly found themselves facing vessels that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Slave markets that had operated with impunity were shut down by forces that struck with surgical precision. Conflicts that had raged for years were ended by the simple presence of Caliph mediators, backed by unimaginable military might. Standing once again on the observation deck of the Eternal Vigil, Kira watched as the first refugee convoy in months traveled safely through what had been contested space. The Void Fleet's escort ships maintained respectful distances, their presence alone enough to deter any threats. Commander Blackwood, now wearing the uniform of a Caliph officer, joined her at the viewport. The latest reports show piracy down 60% across 12 sectors. 3 major conflicts have agreed to ceasefire negotiations. The refugee crisis in the Outer Rim has stabilized. It's a beginning, Kara replied. We have a long road ahead. Admiral Koros materialized nearby, his holographic form more solid and defined than before. The restoration of Caliph technology was proceeding rapidly. My lady, we've received requests for assistance from 47 systems. Requests for membership in the restored empire from 23 more. Kara smiled, remembering the frightened girl who had pressed her face against a prison ship's viewport just weeks before. That girl was gone, replaced by someone who carried the weight of history and the hope of millions. The empire isn't restored, Admiral, she said softly. This is something new, something better. We learned from our ancestors' mistakes and from our own suffering. We'll build something the galaxy has never seen: true peace, not just the absence of war. As the eternal vigil turned toward the galactic core, followed by the largest fleet in recorded history, Kira knew that they thought she was just a captive. They were wrong. She was the future, and the future had finally arrived. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.